So do you want to build wealth with real estate, but you're not sure how to evaluate a deal? You're not alone. And in this video, I'm breaking down the 3 golden rules of real estate investing so you can stop guessing and start investing smart. I'm Emily Cressey. I'm a realtor. I'm an investor with 20 years of experience, and I'm an agent here with Keller Williams Greater Seattle. So let's get right into the facts. Rule number 1 is called the 1% rule. The 1% rule is a fast and dirty way to figure out if a property might work as a rental. And here's how it works. You take the expected monthly rent, let's say $2,000, and divide it by the purchase price of the property. If it equals 1% or more, it might be a great deal. So let's say that a home price is $400,000. The question would be, will it rent for $4,000 a month? If so, it meets the 1% rule. Here's how it works. You take the value of the property, let's say $400,000, and multiply it by 1%, which gives you $4,000. And then you would hope that the rent would be $4,000 on a $400,000 property. But let's be honest, this is Seattle. It is extremely rare to hit the 1% rule on MLS listed properties in this market. You can maybe get $2,000 on a $400,000 condo. So things like that could still work. But if you really want to hit the 1% rule, you should probably invest outside of the greater Seattle area. That's what I do, and I would be happy to help you do that. So whether you're looking to keep it local and maybe buy a duplex in Tacoma, like some of my clients earlier this year, then we'll need to be flexible on the 1% rule. And if you need to stick with it, we're going to need to get a little bit creative. Rule number 2 is called the 50% rule. So now that you've found a property that you think might work, that $400,000 condo renting for $4,000, you have to ask yourself, what is it going to cost to operate? And that's where the 50% rule comes in. The 50% rule says about half of your rental income will go to operating expenses, not counting the mortgage. So again, let's say your rent is $4,000 a month. You can assume that $2,000 can go to cover the mortgage, and $2,000 is going to go to cover expenses, things like property taxes and insurance, which are sometimes wrapped into your monthly payment, repairs, vacancy, reserves for the new roof, property management, those types of things. So when I underwrite a property, especially a larger property like an apartment, I like to see 50% of the rent going to the mortgage, 40% going to expenses, and 10% left over to me at the end of the day, which is my personal cash flow. I like it to have a little positive cash flow. Call me crazy again. This is almost impossible to find in Seattle, but these are the traditional rules that were developed by these long-term investors to keep you safe. And if you can't find them here in Seattle and you're open to investing elsewhere in the country, let me know and I will hook you up with some different options. Rule number 3 is the 70% rule. And flippers, this is for you. You probably have watched HGTV and seen people buying homes, fixing them up, and then reselling. And that's what the 70% rule is all about, to make sure that your margins on the repair are wide enough to actually have a profit. You want to see what the home is going to be worth when it's all fixed up. Let's say $1 million. Then you need to subtract off the amount that it's going to take to fix it up. Let's say $100,000 in repairs are needed. Now your as-is value is basically $900,000. Then investors would suggest that you multiply that by 0.7. So you've got a $900,000 home. You're willing to pay $630,000 for it. Now, that's a pretty low price, and because you're then making 30% as your profit, then you're going to have probably people who are going to undercut you. At least in the Seattle market, investors are working with thinner margins. So if you want to be a fix and flip investor here, you're going to be taking a smaller profit margin per deal unless you're really good at marketing and sourcing deals off market, which we can talk about, but it's really a business model in and of itself. If you're in a less expensive market, like let's say Florida or Oklahoma or something like that, these types of deals work much better using the rules and following the rules like this. But in the Seattle market, it seems like people have thrown the rules out the window. They just want to get into a deal, and they're using really thin margins to do it. So they're not necessarily as safe and profitable as a first-time investor would like. Now, I will say that part of that 30% is not going to be profit for you, okay? You've got to pay things like interest on your high interest short-term loan. You have to pay for closing costs on the buy and the sell. You have to pay for realtor commissions potentially on the buy and the sell, permits, delays, utilities, all sorts of things, problems that come up. You need to be careful. You need to know your numbers. And if it's your first time doing a deal, I really implore you to start small, maybe flip a condo and learn how it works before you go big and invest a lot of money without a lot of confidence in the process. I want to help you make money, but I also want to help you stay safe. Sometimes the best deal is no deal if it's not a cheap enough price, if it's too many repairs, or if it's too much risk. So we've talked a lot about rules and how they're hard to utilize here in the Seattle market. And I definitely say they're not perfect, but they're here to protect you from bad deals and to spot good deals more quickly. Even if you can't find something that fits exactly into your wheelhouse, at least you'll know what you're looking for. And if you're breaking a rule, you'll know which one and why. And then you can decide if you're willing to put up with that risk or not. One way that you can mitigate some of your risks going in as a landlord is to buy a property that's either a new construction or that's been recently remodeled so that you have the assurance of a new roof, new plumbing, new water heater. You're not going to have to do a lot of repairs in the first couple of years, which can help you begin to build equity and get some cash under you before you have to start fixing things around the house. But you always have the risk of a bad tenant, vacancy, months where you're trying to get them out of the property, and you need to be prepared for that with a big cash cushion. So let me know what your goals are. I'm not just a realtor, I'm an investor too. I started doing subject to and lease option 20 years ago in North Carolina, right out of college. And when I moved to Seattle, I found the market was very different. I still work with investors here, and I would love to work with you. We'll sit down and talk about your goals, and then we'll put together a strategy that makes sense for you so you can make sure you're getting into the right kind of property with the right goals in the right part of the market. So let me know in the comments which of these rules you've heard before, what type of investing you imagine yourself doing, and whether you're committed to staying in the Seattle market or open to looking elsewhere. It's a great idea to start the conversation because if you ask me, the rules still apply. You just have to know whether you're willing to bend them strategically or not. We have more investing videos coming out soon, and I don't want you to miss any of them. I'll also keep you posted on what's going on here in the local Seattle market. Again, I'm Emily Cressey, and I will see you in the next video.